So I'd like to do this clip on living together as a family in the spirit of Christ, community, living together. For years I tell everybody, going down the road in faith, that's kindergarten to high school. Living together as a family in the spirit and holding things in common and laying down our lives with one another, that's the university. Yeah, the kind of faith that you need to express on the road is foundational. Whereas the kind of faith that you express when you're interacting with one another and all the different things that come up, the same as everywhere else in the world. No different. The workplace, the physical families, every community, we face exactly the same things. And Amen didn't always surround himself with the sharpest tools in the toolbox. Sometimes the more troubled ones. And so the living together. Now, Amen bore us all. I mean, physically lived with us and surrounded himself by a lot of the, you could say, difficult situations that were around him. And so to live with him, for myself, I couldn't have done it. No way if Amen wasn't here. There's no way I would have, and especially at that time when I came in. But he was reordering things and bringing it back into the original intention from flinging it way out there and allowing everybody to play out their parts. And he had called me in to be a part of that. Now, on the road for the years when I was out there by myself mostly, I did a lot of meditating or, contemplating or fantasizing about setting up community. And one of my ideas was to have a central location. And I was thinking of getting people off the streets and getting a central location where we would live together. And then from there, setting up an outreach kind of thing that would be like a restaurant with one meal a day, a little stage, music or whatever that would be offered up in, something that was towards the Father's Spirit. And leaving it pretty free, but definitely of Christ. Absolutely. So I would think about these things, and be offering them up, how to order it. Not so much physical order, but the spiritual order of how you could establish something like that. So when Amen called me in here, and everything was kind of in disarray, and the brothers and sisters, I didn't realize it at the time, but we were the street people. And yeah. And he was showing me, the basics of really, when I say it like this is like a micro of how everybody should live on earth. See, that's what community is. And the establishment of that in the spirit of Christ, in the spirit that the Father originally intended man and woman to live on this earth in, to reestablish that within ourselves. So, and we're coming from a world that's ruled by the opposite, selfishness and fear. All the defense mechanisms to protect us from really passing through one another. This makes me think of a witness. I read a book about a woman who was helping the Aborigine in Australia. I don't know if I mentioned this story before, but she helped them and they wanted to reward her for that and took her on a walkabout. And what they showed her is that they could hear each other from inside. They didn't talk very much because they could hear each other inside. They could hear each other even when they were far away in different parts of the country. And what they told her was the secret to that is that they weren't hiding anything from each other. They were totally open books. There was no deception. So, of course, practicing that and overcoming even the little things. You got your hand in the cookie jar. Now you start living together. Things become more open because now you have other people who are looking at you as, you're carrying. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do things in secret or think things in secret, but you're more aware that you're being watched and that you're participating in something bigger than yourself. And then, of course, the brothers and sisters, we've been given a lot. So, the rubbing off of one another and the bearing. Amen used to talk about the bearing all the time. That people don't want to bear one another. And he was talking about his people. Because here he was, bearing everything to the max, feeling everything in a way that nobody else could quite feel it like that. Because he was giving everything, all the time. Now, none of us, not one of us, is capable of saying that we were doing the same. We give the best that we're able. And that's, he told me, was good enough. But the recognition of myself and looking around, I see, we have not accomplished that in that fullness yet. And living with him and seeing, a man on earth having accomplished that. Living totally for his love, for his, his creation, really, his people around him, and for the whole creation at the same time. No separation there in him. Every day, all day long, every night, all night long, his attention is to serve us, and selflessly. And I can witness to that. So in that, teaching us. So here I am, one day I wake up and, we're building properties together, we're working together, and all in faith. Nobody's being paid anything. Nobody's even knows who's going to live on these properties. And Amen's calling brothers and sisters in from different parts of the country. And one morning I get up and I look around and I go, okay, well, this is it. This is what I was, in my mind, I was imagining a wealthy person supporting me and setting up a community as I was going down the road. Well, here I was. The wealthy person was Amen. And he was setting it up and showing me all the things, the nuances, the details, deeper and deeper. Stewardship, huge, huge thing. Because every household that we've set up, and starting with his, which I got to be a steward of the yard in Amen's house for years, still am basically one of, stewardship. Never about control. Now there's a certain time when you have to exercise some, but minimal. The government that governs best governs least, and basically opposite of so much governing outwardly as much as serving and being, if you're going to be a leader or even a righteous steward, it's serving from within, being an example of right use of that position. Mostly in this world, there's tremendous abuses in any position that seemingly has power. Amen definitely instilling me the opposite. Giving of self in every direction, and especially in control. Especially. It wasn't ever about control to be a steward. It was about service. And leadership was about your countenance, the spirit you're moving in. That's leadership. It can be invisible to anybody who's not really tuned in. But according to him, is almighty when it's with him. So the bearing part, we have a small body of people who have remained together many years now after Amen has passed. I don't know exactly how many years, somewhere 14, 15 years since Amen blasted out of that body. And some brothers and sisters peeled off. And they had other missions to go to. Those of us who have stayed, it's all about bearing one another and being there for one another in that. I mean, there's times, where I look at a brother or sister and I can see they're not seeing me. They're seeing something altogether different. And you have to give that, meaning I'm not going to contend with it and try to fix it. I could go there and give an opportunity for misunderstandings to be removed, but I can't fix them. So then there's the bearing. Okay, you misunderstand where I'm coming from, who I am. And you've been around me for years. So we're kind of beyond the point of me explaining it. So then you bear it. And what you find, it's never really about you anyways. It never is. When you're in your right place. Now, all of us have stitches to pick up. And then the reflections that we get from one another, if we're looking and we want to pick up those stitches, see, that's the opportunity of living together. And a big part of it is, everybody's got a certain amount of self-protection that has to die. That insulation that we need. If we feed that, it becomes a neurosis. It's opposite of where Amen hangs out. I mean, I watched Amen. I mean, the supernatural ability of him to bear everything and be totally out there in the open. I mean, he didn't have anything to protect. That's true. Absolutely. Knowing himself and knowing Almighty, he's got it covered, of course. For the rest of us, and of course knowing that everything he was doing was for everybody else. See, part of all what we protect is the part that we protect is the part that is selfish. Always. Why else would you protect it? If you've already given it to the Father, then you don't have to protect it. So we have all those elements playing out. And when you're living together, it's forcing all that to the surface if you're willing to take care of it. So those of us who live together, that part of our being, and that is, the inner battle of being able to love one another for who you really are and pass through the parts of each other that aren't. That, Amen would say to me, he said to all of us, that what you see in each other that ain't cool, that ain't right, no, it's already gone. So being able to exercise that with one another. And through that progression, working on self, always working on self. And that's what you do here. That's how you live together. And always in that place. See, and I'm watching, just by us being together, little by little, sometimes. It usually doesn't happen in big leaps. I mean, it could. But it hasn't been. It's just a little by little by little we enter into each other more and more and more. We would not live together. The brothers and sisters who are here, no way. No way. It wouldn't be happening except for Amen. Him bringing us together, and then our desire to be a witness for him by being together. And I know that's true with every single brother and sister who holds a space in this little community that we have, that's in his name. See, it's not because we have a place to rest or we're physically taken care of. That's not it at all. Not for any of us. I mean, we all know better than that. And if I wanted an easier life for myself, for example, I'd live on the road. I probably use a vehicle now more than just walking, but I could have a very simple vehicle, like even the truck. Go out there, I don't need money, I don't need anything. And I could be very, very happy. I know that. It would be easier. And in a lot of ways, it requires more faith and more of an exercise of being purified in this environment. I get up every day. I'm in the wind. I already am. My head is in the wind. I could leave this place in an instant. But I also am instilled in thy will. And so I get up every day. I don't question when I can feel it as strong as I do. Now, I do ask to go out. I like a month or longer. But, and then I have my missions that I go out and about. And then even in the town, wherever we go, like Amen would say, you can bring up The Father, wherever you are, you bring him up. Everywhere. And so, family, brothers and sisters here in this town's got a lot of witnesses in it. So, yeah, the things that apply in us living together here, they apply to everybody everywhere. And the bottom line is this, that when people are gathered together because they love God, and they're gathered together because they want to be reflections of that love and overcome the things in this world that are creating all the horrors, then we're going to be practicing the same things. Love over everything. Faith in the Father and everything that he does. Amen.